Hello everybody, it's Maggie with Grassroots Dog Training. I also wanted to introduce my poop emoji. Isn't that awesome? It was a gift from a fan. I'm also sporting a King Canine t-shirt today just because I happen to be wearing it. But huge shout out to David King over in Kansas City, Missouri, which also happens to have a board and train program for his clients, which is exactly what we were talking about today. Final note, I have my notes with me, so we're good to go. I get this question a lot when I'm doing consultations. I talk to at least 3, 4, 5, 10 trainers a week about either the board and train programs that they're currently doing or trainers that are interested in adding in a board and train program because, let's face it, it's the most economically suitable thing for a dog trainer to offer. Here are just some of the main things that I find myself repeating like a broken record every time I talk about board and trains. Without further ado, here we go. Better strap in and buckle up and strap-ons and all kinds of stuff everywhere. Get ready, because we're gonna rock this conversation. First of all, you have to decide what kind of board and train are you offering. Typically, I break it down into 3 categories. You ready? First one is just basic foundational pet dog stuff. You know, board and trains for the rare dog owner that's actually proactive and wants their dog to have a good education right off the bat. That's awesome. That is one kind of board and train, or doggy boot camp, whatever you want to call it. But it is not the most common for people to spend their money on. The most common is what I call the therapeutic board and train or the problem-solving board and train. This is when your client calls you because their dog is completely fucking nuts out of their mind. Separation anxiety, aggression, biting, I don't know, you name it, right? The dog's got those problems. That's a lot more time intensive and requires, you know, pretty significant amount of prepping and planning for really good hardy board and train, which, remember, that's where a lot of the money is at as well. The third kind of board and train, which is just as unusual really as the proactive pet dog owners, are the specialty board and trains. Things like, you know, training a hunter's dog, you know, lab or whatever. I don't get involved with that stuff. There's not a lot of money there either, so you're looking at a different market. For the sake of this video today, we're mostly going to be focusing on the first 2. The foundational work with pet dogs that is more proactive based, and then the problem-solving approach. You also have to think about where are you going to do your board and train, or board and trains, rather, if you're going to do more than one at a time. This is also an area where you really need to spend a little bit of time thinking about, especially if you're going to come up with a 3 to 5 year plan. A lot of people are trying to do them in home and then work hard enough so that you can afford to open your own location. You've got to really put that and strategize and think about that in advance, however, because there are some benefits to in-home board and trains versus in-facility board and train. But that will be up to a different video because there's a whole lot of stuff there too. The third kind, and some trainers seemingly are just starting to play around with this concept a little bit, which we did about 20 years ago, is the in the owner's home board and train, basically where you go and work the dog. The problem with this is that it's not a true immersion program, and so you're not going to have the same kind of benefits. This could be very good, however, for people that are interested in just that proactive style of board and train. So important things to discuss and consider there as well for your own personal strategy and business plan. Okay, now here comes the fun stuff. I have written down and thought about the 3 most important things that I feel like all of the trainers that I talk with, I wish they would know right off the bat, and here they are. The first one, you need to understand if it's going to be a problem-solving board and train or a therapeutic board and train. Basically, anytime that there's already something going on with the dog and you don't have a previous foundation with that particular dog, your board and train needs to be a minimum of 3 weeks. Typically, I say 3 to 5 weeks is a healthy time period. If it's anywhere before, the trainer typically is a little bit too confident in skills. They don't realize that in order to really establish new habits and make a big impact, a long-lasting impact, with all of that resources that your trusting client has dumped into you, you need to have that extra 2 to 3 week mark in order for that internal stuff to really start working. This is where the idea and the science, so to speak, of developing habits takes 21 days. There's a difference between short-term memory, long-term memory, establishing muscle memory, all of that good stuff. There's a really significant transitional period in between the 2nd and the 3rd week, which if we're the ones training the dog, we don't necessarily see that, but it's silently going on the inside. So make sure that you create your program to encapsulate that science, basically, that factual evidence that dogs need that transitional time in order to really absorb all of the amazing work that you will be doing with their dog from 1 to 3 to 5 weeks. Now, the flip side is if it's over 5 weeks, you need to look at how you're training and really start to tweak the internal workings of your board and train itself. Second on the list is another 3 number, which is there is a 3-day, what I call a decompression time. You can also call it a de-stressing time. It's basically where the dog coming into the new location, albeit your home or a facility somewhere, is going to have a spike in hormones, basically, and stress hormones. There's adrenaline and cortisol and neuropeptides and all kinds of stuff going on up in here, and it takes up to 72 hours for those levels to reach normal again. So that's a really major transitional time. If you do anything that spikes or elevates those levels again, guess what? You're waiting that amount of time for it to reset. So don't do that. Don't run in there with blazing saddles and, oh, I'm gonna fix this dog and I'm gonna do all this stuff. No. Trust me, if you chill out, the more chill you are in those first 3 days, the more you're actually gonna get done in the long run. It's crazy but true. The third most important thing, this one I can't even describe it. I would have to show you during a seminar or something. But the idea of training while in transition, meaning anytime the dog's coming out of the crate and you're walking to potty them, or I mean any of the normal stuff that you wouldn't even think about as training times, those are the moments that actually tie all of your other training together. Believe it or not, you can actually fully train and to the point of, like, you know, aggression work and some really deep-seated behavioral issues. You can address a lot of that stuff without ever taking time out to train a dog in a board and train environment. It is really an amazing thing. So don't forget about those transitional times are by far the most important micro moments of the dog's time while they're in your care. And finally, 3 of the biggest problems and challenges that I find most dog trainers face once they start doing board and trains. If you're thinking about getting involved in providing board and train programs, know these 3 things so that you can prevent yourself from getting into deep shit. And I mean like deep shit, like not even like the poop emoji, because your eyes are not So challenge number 1 is I've talked with a lot of people that are like, I want to put together a board and train program. And then I'm like, oh, how many personal dogs do you have? And they're like 5. And I'm like, 5. The more personal dogs you own, the more you're actually going to end up feeling like you're drowning and you can't escape and you just want to crawl out of this hole and you don't know how you got there. Oh! That can actually lead to another one of the biggest challenges that dog trainers face when doing board and train programs. It doesn't matter if it's in-home or in facility. And that is just sheer burnout. A lot of times the money, because there's so much money involved. I'm talking, you could be making like $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $100,000 a month doing board and trains, and you can't stop. You get yourself into this cycle of work, 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 and you work yourself to the bone. And then again, you end up in a big heaping pile of on the floor. Don't do that either. And then last, and of course, so not least, to the point where I think this should have been mentioned perhaps first in this video, is pricing. It kills me to see the trainers out there that set their bar and their idea of their lifestyle so low that they have to get on that hamster wheel and they can't stop doing the board and trains because they have to make sure that they have that extra money for the next month so that they can pay their bills. And oh my God, get off the hamster wheel and raise your prices. But the reason why I did put this at the last is because you really need to make sure that you have a good solid program before you could really try to charge the appropriate prices. But when you get to that point, do charge the appropriate prices. And I'm talking about American currency, at least $3,000 for a 3-week board and train, guys, nothing less. Especially in the current market, it is worth it to your clients because you are affecting every single day of their lives with that dog for God knows how many years to come. And if you break that down into like a daily allowance, you realize that you are enhancing everybody's life for pennies a day. So be proud of that, take stock in that, make sure that if you want to go, do it, put all of your gusto into it, just do it right, don't make the same mistakes that myself and even my mentor that have been doing board and trains for 50 years when I met him when I was 18 was doing. Learn from all of our mistakes and set out, have a great time, raise your prices. If you guys have any comments or questions, leave them below. I know I'm a little crazy, but I hope that this information has been valuable to you. I'll talk to you soon. Adios.